Because it is so close, and because they don't always disclose what's in the air, what's being emitted, we don't really know how it's going to affect us.
Vea, tengo tantos años aquí en Commerce City y no nos mandan flyers, pero en sí especificando el por qué y qué debemos de evitar, no lo tenemos.
Muchas veces me ha amanecido mi camioneta con un color amarillento muy feo en mi vidrio.
We remember a couple of years back when there was this thick yellow dust that was everywhere. It was on our cars, it was on our windows, and Suncor just apologized and said they would offer some car washes.
O tengo otras conocidas que me dicen que sus hijos padecían de mucho sangrado y con el tiempo el doctor les fue diciendo que quizás era por el medio ambiente.
Entonces también mis hijos pasa mucho de eso y pues a veces no sabíamos pues por qué, hasta que vas investigando y vas sabiendo, entonces pues tiene que ver como pues en la contaminación en la que vivimos.
A lot of the people in my house, they get migraines.
Personas que conozco por lo menos tienen a alguien en su familia con asma.
Those are some of the things that have been reported by a lot of people in these neighborhoods, right?
In most cities across America, the average replacement rate of pipe is well over 100 years, exceeding the life of the pipe. Engineers use a variety of terms such as useful life, service life, design life, expected life, life remaining. The only sure figure is end of life after failure. By then, it's too late. In the case of the pipes under this neighborhood, a 95-year-old 24-inch pipe broke first, which then caused the failure of another 8-inch pipe. One could theorize that governmental immunity explains why there is so much deferred infrastructure maintenance and how acceptable it has become. Much of our infrastructure, built long ago, is aging out and failing now. Should we turn a blind eye to our neighbors that suffer such inequitable harm? Failures are indiscriminate, but planned replacement involves decisions. Who gets new infrastructure and who gets it first?
I'm also a mixed race. I'm a fourth generation on my mother's side here from Denver, exactly. And on the other, my grandparents both left Nuevo Mexico in the headwaters of the Rio Grande, really for opportunity. And my grandfather became a miner, and he got involved in the union, and he started to see what was happening to the water. And he got involved and actually flew to Washington, D.C. himself in the 1960s to try to shut it down. It's been shut down and reopened and shut down and reopened. And that's the struggle that these Latino communities in the mountains face. Segregation is very, very real here in the city, and probably most cities. But I want to be clear, in rural America, the segregation is even more clear. Down Valley communities who support tourism of others who come to our community, people who commute several hours a day on the bus just to get paid low wages and live without clear water access. And these are things that I've learned in my travels. So I am the Colorado State Director for Green Latinos, a national environmental justice and conservation equity organization. Founded as an organization, a coalition like this in 2008. Now we have a staff working in all policy issues from water equity to clean energy, the climate, public lands, and we're growing. And 3 years ago, Colorado got a program, the very first program in the country. And so you can imagine it's a very similar place to where we are now, with one person working to try to guide an organization and bring people together.
Biggest tax-based impact we've seen in recent years since 2011 has been the green energy industry. There are presently about 525 wind turbines in Lincoln County spread out across 5 different wind farms. There is a 6th wind farm in the pipeline that we really are hoping to see start construction later this year. But all of that does point towards the challenges that all of us are facing in this current economy with infrastructure needs. Specifically, our highways and transportation infrastructure needs continued large investment to keep it viable and robust. So we are very dependent on our rural infrastructure for transportation. We also have 2 railroads that cross our county, and additionally, we'd like to see continued investment and development of our rail corridors as well. All of these corridors need our continued attention and our continued investment. So we're excited about what we have to offer here in Lincoln County. We are very rural. We are limited by our amount of available water, but nonetheless, we have a lot to offer.
The region that comprises QQ, or the Water Quality Quantity Committee, this region is the most heavily diverted area of the state. Water is diverted underneath the Continental Divide for drinking and irrigation water in the populous Front Range area of the state, in what are called trans-mountain diversions, which go underneath the Continental Divide, pulling water from one river basin to another. And these historic projects occurred way before today's environmental regulation, which means that there are drastically reduced stream flows that have significant environmental damage left from those historic stream flows. And in turn, those reduced stream flows really have left some challenges for the communities in today's world with the environmental damage, but also challenges with growing the community's drinking water and wastewater supplies. Our region feels drought acutely because we're already experiencing these existing low flow conditions. We also feel drought acutely because of warming temperatures from climate change. For the 2nd year in a row, the Yampa River through Steamboat is already closed to fishing this year. At least this year, it was the week after Memorial Day that the Yampa River closed to fishing. Last year, it closed even earlier in May. And this has a really significant economic impact, especially on local small businesses, fishing guides, and outfitters especially. But it also relates to the overall enjoyment of those who are visiting our towns. And let's put wildfire into the mix. The water quality impacts from wildfire are just one piece of a range of really significant impacts being felt all over Colorado, definitely in our QQ region especially. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the recent Grizzly Creek fire in Glenwood Springs in 2020. Last year, we saw historic debris flows along I-70 that closed I-70 for weeks at a time, well, days at a time. But those closures had a huge economic impact, and that's on top of water quality impacts that wastewater providers are having to focus on. Staff burden for these entities that are worrying about water quality issues from wildfire, and there's a huge cost of recovering from wildfire and responding to the droughts that we're seeing right now. And this puts a significant strain on local governments who are also struggling to address other huge difficult issues to solve, like the affordable housing crisis, especially in, again, the Headwaters region. And the climbing costs of infrastructure projects and response efforts are not helping keep costs down for those who need the most help with affordable housing.
We took a recommendation from a plan and put it into action. One of the things that I've noticed is Colorado does not have any plan guidance. It talks only about tourism. So when you have a state that does not set the framework for really good planning in Colorado, it falls on the shoulders of local municipalities to adopt plans and have recommendations and then put them into action. One thing that was exciting that we did partner with the state, because we don't have guidance from the state. That's something I'm hoping that you all at this symposium will come out with recommendations on how we can actually have more state policy guidance, planning policy guidance to help us here in Denver. One of the things that I would like to talk about is Michael Anderson wrote an article in 2020 in Sightline. And he mentioned direction from the state can advance the debate from why is change needed to what sort of change would be best. Historic commercial nodes is what we're working on, but I would love to learn more about that and what kind of change is best for Colorado. And with that, I will be introducing your next keynote speaker, Elizabeth Gardner, the state demographer. Once again, thank you for allowing me the honor and privilege to address you, and I hope you have a wonderful symposium.